Testing. Testing. Order. The Mayor.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening, Mr. Mayor.
No, sit down. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, good evening, everybody. As I said before, I'll start with thank you for coming to the meeting of the council on the 22nd of February. And I will start with item 1 on the agenda, which is the evacuation procedure. There is a location plan in the exit on the assembly point situated at the doors of this room. Please familiarise yourselves with it. On discovering a fire, please carry out the following: sound the alarm, attack the fire if possible and safe to do so using the appliance provided. On hearing the evacuation signal, please carry out the following: exit the building by your nearest safest exit. All visitors report to the assembly point G. All staff report to their designated assembly point on Woolpack Way car park. Do not leave the assembly point for any reason until told to do so by the incident controller or the fire brigade officer. Okay, I'll move on to item 2. Apologies for absence. Members away on official council business.
Mr. Mayor, I've had apologies from councillors Moss, Singh and Les Smith.
Okay, all noted.
Accepted.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item 3, declarations of personal and prejudicial interest. Okay, and then item 4, the mayor to move in accordance with standing order number 1 that the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 30th of November 2022 be approved as a correct record.
I'll move, Mr. Mayor.
You have a seconder? Second. All those in favour? Thank you. I'll sign that.
Okay. Will you join us then?
Item 5, I've got the mayor's announcements. Firstly, can I welcome Kath Jones, who is the interim replacement for Richard Dobbs. Okay, there we go. And also, I was privileged to be invited to the degree celebrations for Coventry and Hinckley College. It was refreshing to see so many people attaining qualifications during the past 3 years with the pandemic. I also attended the Reserve Forces Cadet Association, seeing firsthand the people of the young people, men and women, some with troubled pasts, making a future for themselves in the armed forces. And finally, I attended the Birmingham International Tattoo, which was postponed due to the death of Queen Elizabeth II, and it was well worth the wait. An excellent event. Okay, that's my announcements, and moving on to item 6 to answer questions from the public.
No questions have been received, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, item 7, to receive and consider the minutes and the notes of the meeting from the Planning and Development Board held on the 5th of December, 9th of January and the 6th of February 2023. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I beg to move that the minutes and notes of the meetings of the Planning and Development Board held on the 5th of December, 9th of January and 6th of February be received.
Thank you. For accuracy, page 112.
What's the row?
Sorry?
121.
Oh, stop. Oh, can I have a second, please? Oh, God. I turned over a page too quick. No, I'm just, why mine started on one?
Again, that 112 is the last minute. Approved.
I'm missing the note, is it? Just double check this, because, I go straight on.
First meeting of the last council meeting.
Yeah. Okay, my apologies. Okay. Okay, start again. 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, and 125, 126, 127, and 128, 129, 130, 131, 132, and that's it. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Simpson. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm disappointed there were no questions. Anybody think somebody got something to talk about later on? Planning is the most exciting item on the agenda after all. But nevertheless, Mr. Mayor, I beg to move that the minutes of the Planning and Development Board meetings held on 5th December, 9th of January and 6th of February now be adopted.
Secondly.
All those in favour? Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 8, the minutes of the special subgroup held on the 6th of December and the 10th of January and the 14th of February. Councillor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I beg to move the minutes on the 6th of December, the 10th of January and the 14th of February be received.
Seconded.
All those in favour? Yeah. Oh, no, anyway, sorry, my apologies. Slow down. 134.
3.
133, sorry, 134, 135, 136. So 135, that's it. 134, yes. Yeah. 134. Right. 134. Okay.
That's what I said.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. Okay. Councillor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the special subgroup on the 6th of December, the 10th of January and the 14th of February be adopted.
Seconded.
All those in favour now. Thank you.
And I'd also like to say thank you to the members that turned out on the special subgroup on the 14th of February. I'm sure it saved you some money.
Okay, moving on to item 9, minutes of the LDF or Local Development Framework Subcommittee. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I beg to move that the minutes of the LDF for the 4th of January and the minutes for the 20th of February, which will be tabled before members this evening, be adopted. Sorry.
Received.
Received.
Yeah.
I'm ahead of myself.
I can't talk. Right. Okay.
That's second.
Another second. Yeah. Councillor Hancock. Okay. 139.
136.
No, I'll get there in the end. 136, sorry. 137. And 138,
A and B.
A and B, yeah. Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Used to be one with bigger glass.
Yes. Better slow down,
Mr. Mayor, it's a resolved item, but I'd like to speak on minute 26, when the local development framework subcommittee considered the issues and options consultation for the South Warwickshire local plan. I'm sure there is much in this draft paper that was worthy and positive and good for the residents of South Warwickshire. But there were three areas that were potentially extremely damaging for North Warwickshire. And I'm delighted that the subcommittee as a whole decided to send significant feelings back to South Warwickshire. The draft plan as it was, or the issue and options consultation as it was, suggested effectively 0 gypsy and traveller site allocations, or at least had the opportunity to provide none. They argued strongly, I think, that they didn't want to provide any D8 logistics sites in South Warwickshire. Remember, of course, they've got Gaydon, they've got that junction on the M40, they've got an innovation rail terminal in their borough, and they didn't come up with any suggestions at all for a lorry park, notwithstanding that the M40 runs through the whole of their borough. I really hope South Warwickshire reconsiders their plan, or their draft plan, in the light of the consultations that this authority have made, and I hope a number of other authorities have made, to encourage them to get in the real world.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Yeah, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be adopted, please.
Have a seconder. Councillor Jarvis, all those in favour? Thank you. Moving on to item number 10, to receive and consider the minutes of the notes of the meeting of the Community Environment Board, Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that the minutes of the Community Environment Board 23rd December 2023 be received.
Okay, so a seconder. Councillor Jordan. Yeah, got there. Yeah. Okay. Right, page 139, 140, 141. Councillor Bell.
Mr. Mayor, and I now move that they be adopted. Thank you.
No, a seconder. Councillor Marion Humphries, all those in favour? Thank you. Okay, item number 11, to receive and consider the minutes of the Alcohol and Gambling Licensing Committee and also the Taxi and General Licensing Committee. Councillor Jens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that the minutes of the Alcohol and Gambling Licensing Committee and Taxi and General Licensing Committee, that were both held on the 24th of January, be received. Thank you.
Okay. Have a seconder? No. Councillor please. 142, 143, 144, 145. Councillor Jens.
Mr. Mayor, I move that both those sets of minutes be adopted. Thank you.
And the seconder. Councillor Marion Humphries, all those in favour? Thank you. Item number 13. We receive the minutes of the Resources Board. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that the minutes of the Resources Board held on the 30th of January 23 be received.
Second. Okay, Councillor Mawson. 146. Okay. Sorry.
Should be joining us soon.
Yes. Yeah. 147. 148. 149. 150. 151. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and to be received and to be adopted.
Seconded.
Councillor Mawson, all those in favour? There we go. Right. Okay. The best one. Yes. Item number 14. Councillor Wright for the exec board.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that the minutes of the Executive Board held on the 13th of February 2023 be received and give notice that we have an amendment to item number 55, which will be circulated now.
Councillor Goffin.
Did we also give notice of amendment on item 55?
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so I think obviously on this occasion we'll do a short adjournment so that everyone can see the amendments. Shall we say 20 minutes? So back at 7:10. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Want to change?
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I'll just say to put the light.
Okay, welcome back, everybody, and we'll carry on. So I obviously invite Councillor Gosling to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Our amendments to this year's budget are brought about in the aim to try and provide stability, security and growth in very uncertain and chaotic times. Firstly, we would like to mitigate the worst of the damage done by the cost of living crisis by supporting residents to maximise their incomes and to get the help that they need when they need it. In our borough at the moment, a Band D resident is paying around £2,000 more than they were 8 years ago, with council tax rises, extra social care payments, increased police levy, parking charges and green bins. £2,000 on top of unprecedented rent, mortgage, food, inflation rises, literally being squeezed from all sides. It's relentless. We aim to introduce a £100 cap on the season ticket for parking to support residents and key workers. And Labour has brought forward a cost of living emergency amendment, and we have achieved some successful interventions due to the hard work of our expertise and the officers' connections with people. We would like that level of expertise to be taken out to our communities, on the ground, on a mobile team, at the heart of our communities, supporting people in their homes and in our community places, our schools and our village halls, so that they can signpost and support and enable people to maximise their incomes and live better lives. This ensures that our most vulnerable residents have the emergency support. Our elderly populations have face-to-face meetings with real experts who can help them deal with the paperwork and the forms, help them through the winters. Coordinated services and improving people's access, building community wealth, is not just about increasing our council tax base, it's also about maintaining all of our assets. Our local businesses rely on local spending power, and unless we can support our residents to maximise their incomes, increase that spending power, our entire local economy will be at risk. If you're worried about putting the lights on at home, then you're not taking the kids swimming, you're not having an extra treat in the coffee shops, and you're definitely not going for any meals out. These are dire times for most of our residents, and we need to be ruthless in finding opportunities to improve people's situations, to advocate and to promote every single chance that we get to support our residents to have better jobs and training. If there is an opportunity, whether it's apprenticeships at the Jaguar, whether it's additional training or jobs at HS2, every school, every youth club and every community we know of should be shouting about it to make sure that our children and our young people have access. Every social media page should be filled with opportunities to support increasing incomes and support people in better opportunities. We need connected thinking and taking the knowledge that exists in this council and the expertise we have to our people to give them a fighting chance of getting through this crisis. Having people in our communities also gives us an opportunity to listen to those people who tell us they're scared by antisocial behaviour or scared of their children attending school. We need to know with crystal clarity the challenges that face our residents without access to good health visiting teams for our youngest, whilst we've got 6-year waiting lists for autism services. While we still have people, we need to understand the impact of people phoning their GPs for weeks and weeks on end without being able to get an appointment. We need to know this so that we can support them. We need to know it so that we can signpost them, but most importantly of all, we need to be able to advocate for them through our wellbeing and through our safer communities, and making sure that we have people's backs and make sure we understand the problems so that we can address them with our partners. We also need to make sure that we tackle antisocial behaviour and our safer streets issues. It is essential, after so long in the darkness, that those communities that feel safer with their lights back on get their lights back on. It's not okay for it to be a postcode lottery with some areas selecting to do this and others not. One of the things that we already know is going to be an issue, we already know from our LDF reports and the assessments, in that we need more affordable housing. It's far overdue and we need to step up. An affordable housing company is a way of supporting residents to make sure they have decent homes to live in, stable accommodation, and and an escape from chaotic private rentals, whilst giving a potential growth and reinvestment. It's a win-win. This budget also aims to protect residents from excessive development and the massive risks of an undeliverable local plan. The Labour Group have consistently opposed the local plan, and now with the 75 million for the improvements to the A5 under increasing doubt, it is becoming less and less likely that it can even be delivered. All of that time, all of the effort, all of the stress, all of our officers and the expense, without that 75 million pounds, the local plan becomes undeliverable, and the whole borough is then at the mercy of unwanted and uncontrolled development. We have committed nearly over half a million pounds to ensuring that if and when the local plan fails, that we will have a better one, a fairer one in place, a plan which is deliverable and a plan which builds the homes for our residents that our residents need and supports natural, sustainable growth in our communities with the right infrastructure in place, not dumping thousands of homes on communities and hope that our partners have the capacity to deliver schools and doctors. With councils and our partners already on their knees, it's taken nearly 8 years to get a speeding sign changed in one of our villages. How on earth is this going to work if we need schools and we need hospitals? We can't at the moment. We don't have access to good school places. We don't have the access to GP appointments. 25,000 extra residents might help in 10, 15 years, but it's not going to solve the immediate problems now. It will add to the burden and make our residents' lives more difficult. Our amendment also aims to support our residents and businesses to grow by supporting existing businesses, enabling new businesses, and improving access to education, training, and growing our community wealth through cooperatives and community investment companies and supporting business. As a borough, our economy is built on the innovations and the hard work of small companies like mine. And over the few last years, it's been punishing one disaster after the next. With businesses' insolvencies jumping up to 30% and 22,000 firms went bust in 2022, with small businesses under 50 employees taking the biggest hammering. We need to find a robust solution together. We need to be able to work together as a borough to form those partnerships, form co-ops if they can provide more resilience, to make sure that we are protecting our businesses, make sure that we are protecting our local assets. We certainly can't stand by while more of them fail. We are just as committed now as we were in 2019 to preserving the investments in our leisure centres. It was the Labour Group that first proposed in 2019 a £9 million investment to rebuild Alston. And despite our serious frustrations with the ridiculous bidding process that we have to enter into, we still think that this is the best way forward. And we certainly wouldn't want to commit residents' hard-earned cash until we've explored every other option of national funding. We do not accept that there is sufficient evidence for a council-run company with the same officers, the same 50-year facilities, the same management, how this is going to magically transform our services just with a new name. We have repeatedly expressed significant concerns about the risks and the structures and the lack of detail in these plans, and we are not satisfied with these responses. We would suspend the formation of the LACTO and the transfer of our staff until we are confident that this is the best and only way forwards. We would also aim to have a squad which sorts out the darker areas, the grotty areas of our borough. We've got streets in Arley that because of their width or because of the parking haven't been cleaned in 10 years. We need to get out to those areas to give people pride in their existence, give people pride in their communities so that they work hard for them and defend them. Once again, this budget is about providing our beautiful borough with stability in chaotic times, with protection for all of our residents, their businesses, their assets, from the worst of the harm to provide cleaner and safer communities. About building resilience and cooperation and making sure that we provide opportunities for much needed growth within our borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gosling. Okay, can I have a seconder to that motion, please? Councillor Phillips. Okay.
Debate now.
Okay, yes, okay. Anyone like to speak on the debate? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Stability was the word you used, Councillor Gosling. Stability, in your opinion, certainly not sustainable. It's all funded from one-off growth, from one-off use of reserves, I would remind Councillor Gosling and the Labour Group, you can only spend reserves once. Shall we pick them off one by one? Interestingly, let's start with the local plan. I won't go into great detail. I don't understand how your words were, our local plan, in your opinion, is not deliverable, and it's not going to provide the services and amenities immediately, whereas you say if you review it, then it will, clearly. If you review the local plan, all of a sudden you're going to magic the amenities. The investment in business, including community, business and cooperative. Well, that's interesting. We haven't even set the criteria. Later on in the agenda, we've got the proposal for the subcommittee to be formed to look at the UK SBF funding. We're setting the criteria. So clearly, we might take that into consideration when we are looking at that, when the committee has been formed, so we can look at this. But I would again remind you, many of the things you talked about are not the responsibility of North Warwickshire Borough Council, nor indeed are they the responsibility of the County Council. They are national issues. You talk about 22,000 businesses going bust. That's nationally. The way you talk, it's as though the 22,000 businesses went bust in North Warwickshire, which of course they didn't. It was national. But you didn't mention the fact that there were 55,000 new companies formed in the same period. In only the last 12 months. Business, we are having growth in business nationally, despite all the negative impact from the press, the negative impact and statements made by the Labour Party nationally. We are still seeing growth. As I say, despite all these various organisations talking down and not celebrating, we see growth. We see growth. Nationally, bucking that trend. It's not just the UK that is in the in high inflation times. This is international. It's across the developed world. We are seeing you cannot solve all these problems from North Warwickshire Borough Council. Interestingly, and perhaps the most interesting, providing funding for set-up costs. That's what it says here, set-up costs of, in effect, a local authority trading company. £300,000. You have consistently, as you say, disagreed with us. You have consistently criticised the amount of money we have spent on setting up the LATCO, which I will remind you again was the vehicle recommended to us by those external consultants, which was the right thing, as the right vehicle to move our leisure services into. But you criticised. We haven't spent anywhere near £300,000 on setting up the LATCO. But you've criticised us all the way. You're against. You're against. You're taking £155,000 again out of reserves because you don't want to do it. Not sustainable. What is sustainable, if we are so minded, we could do exactly that, the local housing trading company, but we don't need to spend £300,000 on setting another company up, because we can change the terms, the memorandum and articles of the local authority trading company and do it under that, thereby saving £300,000 by spending a fraction of that money because we've already done it. I will leave the some of the other things in more detail to some of my learned colleagues. The only other thing I would mention is on your project Clean Sweep. Absolutely, you will see there is £104,000 in the capital programme to replace the Scarab, which is exactly designed to do the cleans the pavements. We've talked to our operatives. They say that's the best way to clean those pavements, etc. It's there in the budget to be replaced. In fact, I was only talking to Kath James, our interim streetscape director to say just this. And we are, and Kathy's now in the process of trialling some of these machines so we get the best one to do for cleaning those streets across the borough. It's already there. We're already doing it. So I can't accept any of these amendments. As I say, you say it's stability, it's just not sustainable, and it would be a denigrate step for the residents of North Warwickshire.
Okay, Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we're facing challenges, but I really feel I have to counterbalance the persistently pessimistic view of the world that's just been presented. I'm just going to pick two things up, which are actually county issues that you've mentioned. First of all, autism. Yes, it used to be a very long wait. We're now down to less than 2 years, with a target to get down to 13 weeks by March next year, and we're on target. There's a huge amount of work going on there. And also health visiting, also been challenged. And now we've got agreed local measures as well as the national measures, and all challenging families will be seen within the 6 weeks after a baby's born, but all families will be seen within 13 weeks. So things are happening. It isn't all bad. Things are being addressed. And also, obviously, I'm not going to agree with you on the LATCO. All local authorities are finding leisure services, the provision of leisure services, really challenging. It's been on the news recently, actually. And of course they are. The cost of heating a swimming pool is going up exponentially. The salary costs and the fact that we haven't got the same number of people come back as we had pre-pandemic. All those things are challenging. Doing nothing is not an option. We have to look at it. We've taken advice, and this is the best way forward that's been recommended. And it isn't just about saving money, but it does save money, at least 150,000 a year and probably more a year. You have put some reserves in for 1 year, but this is 150,000 every year. And also, it gives them the opportunity to bid for funding that we can't bid for, as well as taking a different view of leisure services, being more flexible, being more responsive to the community. And also, in the process of doing their business plan, which we're all very busy doing at the moment, we are looking at ways to be more efficient without impacting on services negatively. In fact, by improving services, but looking for every opportunity so that when this LATCO is formed and the services are carried over, they've got every chance of being successful. We're determined to make it a successful transfer. And that's what we're working on. So it's a huge exercise, and it's one that's absolutely necessary. You can't keep kicking this can down the road. Leisure services are costing us a fortune, and we have to find a way of dealing with it. And this is the advice of the given. This is the very best way to do it, and that's why we're going to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bale. Councillor Hayfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sat with a lot of budget debates and things. I guess to echo what Councillor Wright said, I find the most disingenuous part of this is that you're promising all these things to all the residents on the basis of one-off funding. There is nothing that you've got here that's going to explain how you're going to make these things work over the coming years. I mean, this to me doesn't sound like a budget proposal from a group that actually anticipates being the administration, because it's unworkable. You can't make this work in the way that you're trying to promise here. And frankly, new school placement hospitals, when's that been a responsibility of the Borough Council? It isn't. It's nothing to do with us. Well, we can complain and moan about it, but there's nothing we can do about it. And I'm sure others will comment on things on the local plan, but really, we know you don't like the local plan. We know you don't like the local housing, some of the housing targets. But bringing forward a review of the local plan is not going to change that. Those things still have to be met. And years ago, distant history, we used to have campaigns about block spots around the borough and cleaning them up. And at the time, I remember, the backs around Hilltop in Arley, dreadful. But the idea that you can go in once and clean it all up, and that solves the problem, doesn't, because there are all sorts of things that contribute to why those areas are grotty areas. And just going in once and cleaning it ain't going to sort that out. It'll make it look good for a few photographs, but apart from that, it's not going to do anything. So, you know, I just feel disappointed by this, because I think it doesn't, to me, show any sustainable ambition as to how a Labour group would be an administration for this council should it be successful in May. Let's hope it won't be. Thank you.
Councillor Clues.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The growth one-off to establish a mobile community crisis and growth team consisting of 3 employees for a year to be funded from the business rates reserve. To me, this is very disappointing. I don't think it's sustainable. My party knows that it is something I'm passionate about, something for my residents, not just my residents, the residents of North Warwickshire. I will always step over that line. And I done that one night in this council when I was asked to second a social inclusion meeting. That went down very well, but I will also speak the truth. I was disappointed with how many members turned up from the side that proposed it. But I will agree that at the same time, there was a full council meeting at County Council, so some members did come. I'm not sure if I was at the same meeting as other people, because at that meeting, we had the works and pensions, we had citizens advice, we had people from the gas, we had people from the water board, we had people from all organisations that said that day, if anybody gets in touch with them, they will go out to our small villages, they will go out to our interlands. And this has happened because I've asked for them to go to some of my wards. So it will happen. Spending 120,630 on 3 employees. Our employees that are already here in our social inclusion team here and the ones that do the works and benefits are quite happy to help. And I know that from where I volunteer. To me, it's a one-off and it doesn't work. I assure you it doesn't work. I have volunteered for 7 years at one food bank and now just over 12 months at a social supermarket. Now, if that worked with a one-off, I still wouldn't be volunteering at these places because these are the places that we need to help out. So if this £120,630 was on here saying we'd like to divide this between the things that are already out there working, Edible Links, social supermarket, the pantry, I believe there's one in Artsum, I believe there's one in Badgley, I know there's one in Dordon, and I believe there's one in Polesworth. If we put this money into those projects will still be here next year. They'll still be here probably the year after. I can't see where this 120,630 for a one-off will be what it will do. And I assure you, and most of you know me, if I thought this would work with what I do, what I see day in, day out, that helps the residents, I would be there with you. But I'm sorry, I can't agree with this because the work, what I volunteer and what I do, I don't believe this would work.
Councillor, thank you, Councillor Clues. Councillor Jarvis next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one word I've got written through this is sustainability. And as Councillor Wright says, you can spend the reserves once. But if these reserves are spent on this one, there's absolutely nothing left you can do next year, which astounds me that they're not really looking beyond the end of this calendar year. Looking at one specific one that I've just been sitting here working figures out for, is that the 1-year trial capping of car park season tickets at £100. Now, first of all, that's very subjective. Is it £100 a year? Is it £100 a quarter? Because that's the way they're charged. Now, I've just worked it out both ways. And at the very best, this helps 40 people. 40 people. That's the best that it helps. And that's if that the £100 is £100 a quarter. And that saves people, the season ticket holders, £200 a year. Put the 200 into 7,800, you get 39. So that's the most it can help. If you look the other way and work it out £100 a year, it works out at about 16 people. These figures haven't been thought through. They've just been grabbed out of fresh air and put down on a sheet of paper. And if that's the way that it's all been done, which it looks pretty well, it's just grabbing figures out of fresh air that look presentable. But when you actually dig deep into them, I don't think there's any of them that are really presentable, as all my colleagues have been saying, that they are just not sustainable. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jarvis. Councillor Kerry Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to say Jodie is correct on one thing with the streetlights. Harts Hill is going through a trial project at the moment where the parish council is funding the streetlights to be on 24 hours, or over the dark periods of the night, right through. And I drive down that road before 6 o'clock in the morning, and as soon as I leave Harts Hill, it's dark. And I get that. It is a security issue, it is a safety issue, and it is something that we need to be addressing. But these numbers don't add up. There was a quote to do switch the lights on for the whole borough, and it was going to be £83,000 for the year, for 1 year. You've come up with £51,000. Now, that was prior to the energy crisis and costs going up. Harts Hill were paying £3,000 per annum for the first year. That's now gone up to nearly £12,000. So your £51,000 is only going to be a postcode lottery for 4 wards in our area. If it's a smallish ward that we can do it with, I think this number is inadequate. And again, we'll go back to the fact that you're taking the money out of reserves, and that will only be sustainable for 1 year for 4 of our wards. So I can't accept this on that basis of the numbers just not adding up. We'll be looking at £204,000 to turn the lights on over the whole borough now this year. And we just don't have that money in reserves to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Next is Councillor Simmons.
Mr. Mayor, I think it's worth saying that we all want to make things better for our residents and support them in challenging times. So I don't think we're different in that way. But I think one of the things that's really challenging is, and we don't serve our residents well by spending everything that's in the reserves, emptying out the bank account and not generating any more money with it. You know, pretty much every single measure here costs money that we've got in the bank and puts nothing back in, which is, you know, really, we wouldn't do that in our own homes. So why should we do that to our residents? I think the other part of that is obviously I'm very supportive of the LATCO. That's not a surprise to anybody. We've gone through resources with that and C&E and executive and had many debates on that. One of the things that's surprising is that we'd be closing off that and sort of almost ditching the £100,000 that we've spent, about that, isn't it, on the LATCO that we've already got, to not do that and not save the money on the VAT and the council tax, but to spend £300 for forming another one for a different purpose. That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, when we could actually, as has been said, form a company underneath the company we've already funded and raised and opened. So it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make fiscal sense. It doesn't make sense for our residents, and it doesn't make practical sense of to achieve anything in a time frame either. So there's several parts there, but the one thing for me was providing funding for, you know, we've talked about some of these things in the housing committee about providing affordable housing and all the rest of it, but actually just setting up a company doesn't do that. What we actually have to do is look at our policies and procedures and look at having a completely different way of looking at that, and that is something we are tackling through the housing committee. But just putting a one-line heading saying we'll set up a company to do that over here without any substance behind it and spend £300,000 on it when we've already got one, we can sort of umbrella underneath, makes no sense whatsoever to me. So I think from that point of view, I'm quite concerned about this. I'm very concerned about this budget amendment. You talk about the facilities, you know, and spending money on the LATCO to just continue with the facilities as they are. In the capital programme, there's £3 million for a new facility for Polesworth. There's 2.6 million for Atherstone, and we hopefully future loft bid money. it isn't just to transfer what we've got into another company for it to fail. There's such determination for it to succeed that the work is being done at the moment on the business plan. It has been work, understanding what we need to do in Polesworth. That £3 million that was put in the capital programme last year hasn't disappeared. It's still there. It's still there to complete that project. And I think this misses that point. That money needs to go into that organisation or that building and that leisure service, whatever that becomes, with that £3 million, needs to go into that reformed company that's much more efficient, much more effective at using that resource, and actually become revenue generating for this organisation, not just putting one-off spending. So from that perspective, whilst I understand some of the sentiment behind some of these items, I can't support that.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Next we're up to Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. I want to return to a theme that's been mentioned by a couple of the speakers around the actual deliverability and the costing of these proposals. Now, if we look at the local plan, see a £500,000 allocation for the review, which interestingly is the forecasted cost that it costs to do the current local plan, which is only 18 months old. So I've heard Councillor Gosling say that the A5 money has gone and that the whole plan is flawed. Well, I think that's probably unfair to suggest that the local plan is at risk as we stand here. It's unfair to local residents, and it's worrying. Without doubt, there are a number of people within communities who have allocated sites within them who remain opposed to local plans, but this cost of £500,000 doesn't cover the reality of doing a full review. One of the biggest costs for doing a full review would be around compensation that had to be paid to landowners who have got allocated sites in this plan. So while £500,000 may well cover the officer time, it doesn't cover the full cost of disposing of the current local plan. I think the other thing that I'd say is that there's a worry I'd have with that proposal as well around just the work streams going forward. So we know that our current local plan, approved 18 months ago, runs up to 2030. So we are now moving into work to prepare the post-2030 local plan. And for matters like employment land reviews, we know that an employment land review is going to take 7 years to complete. So if we are going to use our officers upstairs to start doing root to branch reviews of the current local plan, we're not going to be in a position to properly address the work that needs to be done for the next local plan, post-2030. So, I'm grateful for the challenges that come in these budget debates, because without doubt, they make everybody think. And they make everybody think about costings, they make everybody think about deliverability, and that is exactly how it should be. But I fear, Mr. Mayor, that we probably need some reality around the proposals for the costings that are in this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Now I have Councillor Davey.
My point was the mobile community crisis and growth team. Citizens Advice Bureau have to fight for their funding every year. They do get core funded through local authority, but any other funding they have to fight for. And if there's other organisations delivering the same service as them, they don't get the money. So what we'd be doing with that is taking away a service that's already in place. Because why would the local authority fund the CAB if the local authority were doing the same thing?
It would. Okay. So now I've got Councillor Jens.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to briefly touch on something that's already been mentioned, and that was the word stability that Councillor Gosling used when she opened this proposed amendment. I just don't see where there's any stability at all in this. It's all funding taken from the reserves, which will last for 1 year. And then after 1 year, what happens then? Where's the stability in something that only lasts 1 year and then doesn't continue beyond that? I just can't see it. And the one particular proposal that I did want to mention which is the clean sweep. Yes, I agree that in my village we have noticed that there's the streets aren't quite as clean as they were, but that's because because this Scarab machine needs replacing, and in the Conservative budget, there's a proposal for £104,000 for a new Scarab, which will hopefully solve that problem. A one-off clean sweep is not what an area like mine needs. It's always been clean, and it's still fairly clean, but it needs to be kept clean every week. It doesn't need to be a one-off clean that will make it nice and shiny for a few week or two and then it'll disappear. So I can't see the point in that. Let's put the money into a permanent, ongoing clean regime. So thank you. Thank you. Now.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Jens. Councillor Hancock.
Thank you. Just simple points, really. Clearly, there's something happening in May, and this will be on leaflets somewhere, I'm sure. Couple of points. It's quite ironic that we're going to put £120,000 into a scheme to help people maximise their earnings when you're going to spend more. You are literally going to leave maybe you guys need to go and have the help of the budgeting and get them to help you, because £120,000, £1.4 million of the reserves will be gone if Labour are voted in May. That's how scary it is. And residents need to know that. These points don't help everybody. We've got lighting that does 4 wards. Awesome. And let's just hope they all don't want it, as you put in there. We have trials that cover 78 people, 40 people. Again, not the whole borough. Everything in here, vulnerable, elderly. There's no one for normal people. There's nothing for the whole borough. Once again, key points, buzzwords put on a leaflet.
Thank you to Councillor Hancock. Councillor Osborne.
Yeah. Dan, you might want to rethink the words. There's nothing here for normal people. I think that was a bit of a faux pas. You might want to rethink that. So what I'm going to say tonight is just from me walking round the residents. So they're not really my words. It's the residents on the ward as I've been going around knocking the doors. And believe me, they don't think that the newspapers are making it all up or everybody's talking things down. What they notice is they don't want food banks. They don't want them. The rise of food banks has been ongoing for the last 13 years. And the reason that all of the people in this room find themselves in this position is because councils across the country have been starved of funding. £13.5 billion worth of funding gone. Libraries shut. Sure Start Centre shut. And it's all right saying, oh, nothing to do with us, we're only the borough council. Well, unfortunately, the residents expect us to be singing that hymn to whoever will listen. And from the doorsteps, I can tell you that they're just not happy, that they're seeing their standard of living eroded. And, oh, it's a national thing, it's a European thing. I don't think that's going to stick.
Thank you,
Point of
Councillor.
clarification.
Sorry?
A point of clarification.
Yes, okay.
You just commented that food banks existed in the last 13 years. Just on a point of clarification, that the first food bank was started by the Trussell Trust in 2000. That's not, I know you're making a political point there, but I just wanted to take a point of clarification.
Yeah, clarification is quite accepted.
So it's 23 years then.
Yeah, but the political point.
Councillor Simpson. Simmons. Simmons. We should have Simmons, Simpson.
Definitely him. I saw that man.
Yes. I've just put my teeth back in. Sorry.
Listen, I've been sort of sitting and listening to the debate, and I was sort of waiting back, expecting a flood of speeches from the Labour group to defend their budget proposal, to support their leader. And I was sort of sitting there thinking, oh, can't be another Tory having a go at Councillor Gosling. Come on, Team Labour, give her a leg up and help out with this.
So you're going to.
And then Councillor Osborne stood up to speak. I was expecting a great support. Didn't mention that budget once. It was all about what a nasty Tory government we've got and how, other things aren't working. So it makes me question, really, is the group opposite genuinely committed to this budget? only one person's going to speak, I admit that's a hostage to fortune because they might all be waiting to speak after me. So I'll still be interested. Mr. Mayor, Councillor Gosling talked about this being a budget for stability, security and growth. Great words. As far as the issue on bringing the local plan review forward, it's none of those, is it? And I can't see much in terms of stability, security and growth generally. The only thing in reality that bringing the local plan review forward will be an increase in cost and an increase in instability. You cannot simply uninvent the plan. It's there. As Councillor Roy said, you're going to have to spend an awful lot more money in terms of compensation for people who presumably, if you're not going to give them the housing allocations that are already there, then there will be compensation to be paid. But if not, what are we saying? We had the Labour group talking to us throughout the plan process about there were too many houses in it. Is this just yet more houses on top of the already larger allocation? Where are we going with this local plan growth? Other colleagues have spoken about some of the maths in here. You know, I wonder whether the mobile community crisis and growth team is the entire on costs of providing for these three people. Does it include all the support charges and everything else, or is it simply the salary bill, which it looks like it would be from the amount for three people? Colleagues have already made the point that the streetlights actually will cost rather more than that to do it. Project Clean Sleep, £50,000 won't do that. We all know that. Maybe you're going to catch up with the 300,000 quid on the local authority trading company, because as the leader of the council eminently said, we could do that for nothing. It's one line onto the existing articles of association. So maybe the real funding for all these things is in the 300,000 quid for the trading company. Local plan review, 515,000 sounds like a lot of money. And it is a lot of money, but it's not the full sum. That's based on the fact there's already £400,000 in the budget. That £400,000 is there to fund work that needs to be done. So you're either, Councillor Gosling, not going to do that work, or you've missed off 400,000 quid. I'd like to know which it is. Yeah, it strikes me, and I understand what you said. You were talking about if and when the plan fails. There's an awful lot of us in this room that don't believe that the plan will fail. So it sounds to me like you're gambling just shy of £1 million on bringing instability to the borough on an if something happens. There's no certainty in this. An awful lot of us are absolutely convinced that the government will find the appropriate funding, as they've already said they will. So £915,000. With the last borough plan cost us £550,000 to get to that point. Now we know that just under £1 million is what the cost of the next one will be. I'm not sure we can afford these guesses. It's a guess, it's a hope, it's a wish that the plan will fail. 915,000 is what it will cost you to get to a plan. Now, you know, it's not so you spend £115,000, you put it on a shelf and you pick it up later. If you don't need it in 4 years, you can pick it up and use it for the next time. Well, actually, no, that wouldn't work either. Because everything, all the reports and everything you do to get the plan to an adoptable stage has got a date stamp on it. You spend that money in the next 4 years and actually you don't need it because the government comes up with the money, the A5 is done, everything else. You haven't got a borough plan that's ready to go in the next 10 years. You've got something which is obsolete, which is out of date. You've wasted 915,000 quid. And the money that we would have spent, you know, the work that the £400,000 is there for, well, that just didn't happen. So you've got to spend another £400,000 to get back into the same place. So, you know, I mean, then colleagues have talked about the cost of capping the compound. Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, you know, there's a lot in this that's well-intentioned, I'm sure, but it's not, for me, a budget proposal for stability, security and growth. It's a budget proposal for a new calculator.
Thank you, councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
So I say, Councillor Gosling does
Yes,
have
sorry,
support of the Labour Party, and I think we're all just enjoying the things you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor.
Your speech.
Okay, okay, back to you, councillor Gosling.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we do know that there is funding already in reserves, and my questions would be in the same way that there are risks on both sides. If the A5 funding does fail, then that was an enormous investment which is completely wasted and leaves us vulnerable to unconditional, unrestrained development all over our borough, and we are not prepared to take that risk. We would rather have a plan B to protect our residents. The fundings in here are approved by our finance officer. The fundings for the car parking are based on the season tickets for the year, which are subscribed to at the moment. So please check your papers because the details are already in there. As far as the £300,000 is concerned, it's not just for the Lacto, it's the initial funding to make sure that we can cover legal costs and possibly the purchase of the first properties. It will be invested, it will be used, and it will have growth to be able to pay back into this council, unlike the Lacto, which is on the table at the moment, which even our own people admit we're not worried about whether or not it pays corporation tax or not, because if we can get it to a stage that it'll make a profit, it'll be a miracle. So let's not compare the two. They are very different. As opposed to the Lacto, we have actually never said we oppose the formation of the Lacto. What we have said is we have not seen sufficient detail. We have not seen a business case. We have not seen the details to demonstrate that the £100,000 you've spent on it is worthwhile. You are talking about a saving, which at the moment is a maximum of 155,000 that doesn't even include the VAT payments, which brings it down substantially to about 60,000 a year if we're looking at, again, risks. We don't have a formalised thing. If you talk about reserves, this council spent nearly £1 million in reserve last year just to bankroll itself with no investment in additional services, no extension. In fact, we actually made cuts to our community service, we've made cuts on our doorsteps, and we've introduced charges which tax our residents even more. And that was on our reserves. So please don't come preaching about the use of reserves, because if you put it on your leaflets, then guess what? If it's just about the leaflets, then we are just as bad as each other. But at least this had some investment and some growth and some actual development of our community standards. As opposed to the one-off, advocacy. One of the most important roles that we do is advocate to our partners. So please don't cop out on our obligations with County Council. Please don't dismiss these things as, well, they're not our business anyway. We have to be looking out for our residents. We have to be dealing with their issues. We have to be supporting their well-being, their economic activities. We have to be supporting them. And one of our key roles in that is advocating to our partners at County Council. It is crucial, and for us to do that effectively, we need to know what our residents are thinking and feeling and what they are struggling with. And real people are interested in these things. As far as the light's concerned, if we need to go back and revisit that, we will. We have always defended the turning on of the lights. We always have said that it is a safety issue. You get cars in ditches at midnight and nobody can even see. Emergency services can't find the crash sites. It is ridiculous and it is unsafe. In a world where we've got Sarah Everard and all sorts of people and crime on our streets, we need to make sure our streets are safe. It is a number one issue. It needs to be back on. If we have to go back and revisit it, we will. As far as one-off uses are concerned, when we have a government that gives us more than a one-off year settlement, then we will commit to longer. But at the moment, until we have a proper government that actually commits to supporting local councils properly, then we will do this. This is a position that your government has forced us into. We would love to commit these for longer periods of time. We would love to support our communities properly. It is your government that has failed to support that. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Gosling. So obviously that's been proposed and seconded. Can I put that to the vote, please? I think it's a name vote, isn't it?
Yes, it's a recorded vote in respect of, because it relates to the council tax. So this is in respect of the Labour proposal
that you've just debated. So, Councillor Bell,
Against.
Councillor Chambers,
For.
Councillor Denise Clues,
Against.
Councillor Tony Clues,
Against.
Councillor Davey,
Against.
Councillor Dervix, for, Councillor Farrow,
For.
Councillor Gosling,
For.
Councillor Hancox,
Against.
Councillor Hayfield,
Against.
Councillor David Humphreys,
Against.
Councillor Marion Humphreys,
Against.
Councillor Jarvis,
Against.
Councillor Jens,
Against.
Councillor Jordan,
Against.
Councillor MacDonald,
Against.
Councillor McLaughlin,
For.
Councillor Mawson,
For.
Councillor Osborne,
For.
Councillor Kerry Parker,
Against.
Councillor Marley Parker,
Against.
Councillor Parsons,
For.
Councillor Hayden Phillips,
For.
Councillor Owen Phillips,
For.
Councillor Riley,
Against.
Councillor Simpson,
Against.
Councillor Sandra Smith,
Against.
Councillor Simmons,
Against.
Councillor Andy Wright,
Against.
Councillor David Wright.
Against.
That's lost.
I was going to say for then.
Okay, obviously that's been lost. So we'll move on to the amendment. Substantial amendment. So, you need to, yeah, okay. Okay, Councillor Wright, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our budget, whilst it's not headline grabbing electioneering budget, it's a lesson in sustainability. We've heard from the Labour group, and unfortunately I haven't got a right to reply, but now I can. So you talk about this lack of funding by the government. You talk about proper government. Let me remind you, going back a few years ago, we talk about sustainability. The Labour government, when Gordon Brown was the Chancellor, he did his level best. He talked down the price of gold. And when it reached rock bottom, he sold the reserves. He then bailed out businesses that didn't concern the government. He broke this country, broke. We were bankrupt. It was the Conservative government that came along and saved the country. And got to see those austerity measures. That's why the funding to local authorities started dropping, because they had been overfunded by the Labour government. Overfunded. They were spending money like it was going out of fashion. That is not how you run an economy. That is not how you run business. That is why our budget, is a sustainable budget, because we know how to run business, we know how to run budgets, and it's all about the benefit of our residents. So, whilst I say it is not a headline grabbing electioneering budget, what it is sustainable and full of ambition. We have got £3 million still there in the budget to provide a new leisure facility in Polesworth. We have committed the £2.6 million in our budget to put forward to the redevelopment of the Atherstone Leisure Centre, excuse me, when we get the £20 million LUF funding. We have got £1 million in our budget to fund additional car parking facilities in Coleshill. We have got the £104,000 in our budget for the Scarab, which is sustainable, that cleans our streets all year round and sustainable, not one-off. And I heard the comments from the Labour members when we kept referring to that one-off. It's there in your budget, one-off. You describe it as a one-off deep cleaning. Again, not only is that not sustainable financially, it's not sustainable and it's not worth the paper it's written on for the streets. We are all about sustainability. We are all about ambition. We're all about growth. Our financial inclusion, as Councillor Denise Clues said, our officers are doing tremendous amounts of work. Already our financial inclusion officers, our social inclusion officers, we are already doing this work. Other organisations, as Councillor Davey has mentioned, and Councillor Clues again, this is already being done. This is already being done. It's all part of a team. Half the stuff that you mentioned is just, quite frankly, electioneering and not sustainable. As I say, this budget, our budget, it may not be that electioneering, headline grabbing budget. But what it is sustainable, it's affordable, and it promotes growth, and it's ambitious. And I commend it to this chamber.
Okay. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Clues. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Right,
thank
okay.
you, Mr Mayor. Can I reserve my right to speak, though?
Certainly, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So, anyone else like to speak?
You can ask.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Mr Mayor, and it's a bit late for me to be up.
Right,
But I've,
okay.
I've lost the plot here. I thought we were voting on an amendment that had been proposed by the Conservative group.
Well, we are, yes. It was,
Just the amendment,
Yeah.
not the whole budget.
no, this is just the amendment.
That bit's amended it as well.
Yeah, so
So-
it says recommendations.
What you're talking about is the budget as set with your amendment in
Correct.
it. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. Just for avoidance of doubt, so the minute 55 has been circulated prior to the meeting. The Conservative this evening have wished to amend recommendation A and B as printed. And as it says at the bottom of that page, all of the recommendations remain as set out.
Okay. Councillor Phillips. Okay.
Question is ambitious.
Well,
Not
both Phillips, obviously, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, you speak.
This question is ambitious, not good enough to win the election.
Okay.
It's not electioneering, it's not ambitious.
Right.
I keep both.
Okay, councillor
It
Hayes.
was just for a point of information of clarification, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
Going back to Gordon Brown crashing the economy, I thought it was the banks that went bankrupt and Chase Manhattan and people out in the accountants that crashed the economy. Never mind all this trust. But it was those that run out of money investing in junk bonds. It wasn't the money that Gordon Brown spent on hospitals.
Thank you, councillor Phillips. Anyone else like to speak? No? Okay. We'll put-
Anybody else wants to speak?
Okay, councillor Simmons, the right to reply. Oh, sorry, councillor Clues, yeah.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it always comes to the budget, and I think the budget is hard to set for either side. I remember 4 years ago, and, you know, as it's been said, where I volunteer, I would like the councillor that said that some of his residents don't want a food bank. I would invite that councillor to come down to the food bank anytime to see if people can do this.
Yeah.
But going back to the
I think it's still the need for a food bank.
I am proud of what the budget we've set
Sorry, could you let?
for the last 4 years. And one of those reasons is the housing. I still live on an housing estate, and we do need housing. But while I'm been a councillor here, we have spent 16.6 million housing works delivered. Lister Road, Nilbuild Phase 1, Lister Road, Building Phase 2. Those bungalows down Dragon's Court are some of the nicest bungalows that I've ever visited. And I've always said that this council should put in an award for them. St Helena, Polesville, Swan Lane, Grendon, Churchwalk, Manchester. We did have a problem. But with one of our volunteers, Angela Coates, that problem is being sorted. Long Street, Coleshill Road. Now, the Long Street site, I was actually asked, was they for sale? Because people thought they was private houses because they looked so nice. And in the last 8 years I've been a councillor, one of the always things I wanted to with housing was, please don't stick our social housing in a little corner on an estate. They should have the same pride in their house as anybody else. And these new houses that are being built are coming up to that standard. Trinity Close and Natters Close, Wharton. I actually went out and had a look at those. Again, these are nice houses. So even only if I am, the 80 years I've spent here is one thing that we have done, and I'm not just saying this side of the chamber, but with councillors, with our officers, I'm proud that these houses that we have built are up to the standard that our residents should be living in. And we've only done this with the budget that has been set over the last few years.
Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, just to, I can't be seen. It's just a point of clarification about the food banks. When I said that want the food banks, they don't want to have to use the food banks.
Indeed.
Yeah, they don't want to have to need them. The need for food banks, I think it was trebled or quadrupled. There's a large increase in the use of food banks. Let's just go with that. And the people that I speak to who are asking for like bread at reduced prices and all that sort of thing, they don't want to have to go to those places and get the food. They do, but they don't want to have to do that. They'd rather not.
And I said that, Councillor Osborne.
Okay, Councillor Hayfield.
Thank you. I think my leader was being uncharacteristically modest about some of his claims and things, saying that this wasn't a particularly exciting sort of budget we were putting forward or an amendment, because it's an ongoing part of a series of really great programs that have been going on for the last 4 years, capital allocations that have been awarded that are in the process of implementation. This is simply continuing to steer us in a direction of improvement for the residents of North Warwickshire across the borough, just in some areas across the borough. And it should be seen in that light. It is almost as sort of steady as it goes, because we have got financial difficulties. We know we haven't got lots of new money to give around, but we're building on what we've already achieved and taking it into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayfield. Councillor Jens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I welcome this budget. I think this is far, we're talking about stability as we mentioned previously. This is a stable budget, I think. But I just wanted to quickly say how much I welcome the proposal for funds for the coronation. In the last week, I've been approached by 3 separate groups in my ward asking if there'll be any funding available for the coronation celebrations, and it's good to see that we are making that fund available. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jens. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm really happy to support this budget. It has been challenging to set this budget. It really has. I mean, we all know, don't have to list on cost of living, fuel costs, salary rises, etc. However, under Community Environment Board, obviously, it's all about supporting our communities and the individuals within it. And this budget continues to maintain that. Difficult though it's been, we are continuing to maintain that. Waste collection. I'm really proud of our waste collection operatives. They are friendly, they're they're supportive of the community, they're flexible, and they're the face of North Warwickshire. And I'm really proud of them. And despite the growth in housing that we've got, they are managing to maintain their budget pretty much as it is. And they're doing that by all sorts of efficiencies. And we're also investing 1.5 million in new vehicles to make sure that we keep up that standard that we've got there in that. And also, of course, the green bin income is higher, slightly higher than we were expecting. So it's a really good area of our borough, and I'm really pleased to see that we're supporting them. We've mentioned street cleaning lots, but we know that it's important to residents. We are investing over 200,000 this year and 170 next year on street cleaning, and we recognise it's important. We will be looking at new equipment, as we've mentioned. Our play parks, we've got lots of play parks across the borough, and we have a rolling maintenance and upgrade programme, and we're continuing that this year as well in a sort of cyclical manner, going around them all. Over 300,000 in the capital budget to keep those up to date. And one of the things we are doing is also introducing play equipment that's suitable for disabled children, and that's going on across the borough. So real things to be proud of, despite the challenges. Atherstone Leisure Centre, I don't need to tell you that we've had a few problems recently. We know there are issues, particularly with the swimming pool. And the plant that surrounds it, it's difficult to get parts, it's expensive, We have to have a plan, and we've got a plan. It may not be, none of us really want to be in this bidding war. That may not be the best way to allocate money, but it's the game that's there. So we've got to play it. And we are determined to do our very best in the next round as well. And I think the government called it shovel-ready projects or something of that line, which is why there's so much work going on in the background around about £100,000 worth of work in the background to make sure we're ready. We've got the architects, we've got the lawyers, we've got everybody there, so it's ready to go. And obviously, it's not entirely under our control, but we really will be pushing on that. It's so important to us to keep that facility going. Colchester Levy Centre, yeah, it will be funded through 106 payments when the housings are developed, but we're not going to wait that long. We've allocated 3 million from reserves to get going with that now, so it's ready and we can have a leisure facility there. It's important to the residents, we understand that, and we've committed to doing it. I hesitate to mention the LATCO again. I'm going to just briefly, just to clear up one thing. 150,000 is not the maximum, it's the minimum. That's what's coming from the non-domestic rates. There will be other VAT savings. There will be hopefully savings from the business plan too, and they will be able to bid for funding. So I just need to keep underlining that. And when you say you haven't got enough information to make up your mind, how high do you want the stack of papers to be? At the last exec board, we had the contract and we had the articles of association, quite thick, all of them. Plenty of information in there if that's what you want. We've had the leisure services agreement go to CE board. The paperwork is out there. It may be draft in some cases, but it's there. The information is there, you just have to read it, and it's a long read, but it's there. So, please don't tell me we haven't got the information. We all need to move forward on this. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm really happy to support this budget, which supports our communities.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Hancock.
Thank you. Again, supporting this budget, obviously. I do think it is exciting, as Councillor Hayfield said, that actually we're continually to working on these projects we've already started. Aviston Town Football Club, Tennessee at Will, another community group supported by us. We had Hurley, we've had so many of these, like Aviston Rangers, we've raised Meadow, Aston Villa partnership, we've got the bikes events and things like this. These are all massive things that support the community. The Polesworth Leisure Centre, the new one. The first thing that I heard when the local plan was coming, that we would get no infrastructure in Polesworth, would be just dodge these houses. Yeah, it's there because the plans are there, and this budget continues those plans again. And I'm excited for what they'll come out as. And if we continue these partnerships, and hopefully we'll see more support in Polesworth as well.
Thank you, Councillor Hancock. Anybody else? Councillor Simpson.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I am still Councillor Simpson.
You are, yes, you are.
I was sort of holding back to answer criticism of the budget, but I haven't heard a lot of criticisms of the budget. And unfortunately, all my brilliant points that I was going to raise in support of the budget have been made by my colleagues. There's an awful lot of good that's in the leader's budget proposal. So there's only really two things I've got to say. One is just let's compare the two budgets. Labour Group's proposal is essentially to spend an extra 1.7 million on the figures proposed previously. Conservative budget is to spend just over 40,000 quid more. It's an awful lot more prudent and reasonable, but as has already been said, there's so much good stuff, positive growth and development that's been proposed by the leader and the Conservative group. If I was looking for a catchy phrase, Mr. Mayor, to describe the budget proposal, I'd say it was a budget that was aimed at stability, security.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gosling.
Thank you. I just want to make the point that on most of the issues you have raised here tonight, all of the leisure centres, all of the housing, has been unanimous across this chamber. We have done good things together in the last 4 years. We have asked for more details. We have asked for more scrutiny repeatedly. We have asked for less actual dogged down paperwork and more business case on the LATCO. We have asked to see how it's going to be transformational. We see that it's going to be more efficient, and we're just saying how. Show us with the same people, with the same leadership. It's just a different name. I understand the tax structures are slightly different, but actually those VATs could well work out to be costs instead of savings. They might be costs for our council, but not for the lacto itself. And actually, why are we burdening it? We have asked for clarity on this. We don't have any. It is just one of those ongoing things. Most of the things you have mentioned, of course, we would support the capital investment in our leisure centres. We are as committed as you are. But your budget, with £40,000 for parties and celebrations when people are in severe poverty, does not go far enough to meet the needs of those people.
Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak on the budget. I think this will be my last budget discussion I will have to sit through. But I do feel sufficiently moved to just talk about, you talk about sustainability as the Conservative group and as this administration. But there is very little that in terms of the investment in the capital programme that even nods towards the longer term sustainability of our planet, of our people, in terms of investment in climate change. There's at least £600,000 set aside for car parking. There's also another £600,000 set aside for vehicles, which when we asked about were any of these going to be replaced by electrical vehicles, we were more or less told no. And so I think when we look at the overall spread of this budget and we think about sustainability in the true sense of sustainability, the fact that this borough council declared nearly 3 years ago that it thought there was a climate emergency and we should be working towards zero carbon, actually this council has done nothing seriously around investing in those kinds of switches that we need to make towards a more carbon neutral future. And I think it's appalling that this money, certainly on the capital side, but very little of it has been set aside to ensure that the vehicles and the pollution that we ourselves generate as a council, none of it is going to go towards trying to clean up our own act. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just minded to celebrate the Smurf. Indeed, we've welcomed Mr. Dodds to move forward and start his new job. And what is the materials recycling facility other than a huge commitment to cleaning up our own mess? Yeah.
Still.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Marion Humphries.
Can I just answer that one, please? Because I work on the climate board, and I must say that our officers work hard at looking at alternative, and they've worked hard at channeling their ways at trying to look at vehicles that will accommodate rural journeys. They found that when they tried to look at the vehicles that would go around the rural areas, they do not meet the needs. They do half a journey, and then because of the weight that gets worse and worse and worse and higher through the journey, they won't come back again. So unless we want vehicles stuck all over the place, we need to do this in a way that we're looking at either electric or whatever we're doing. So please don't say that we're not looking at something. Think about what you're doing, think about what you're saying, and if you don't know, find out first before you actually say the borough is doing nothing. Okay, this is an open forum, but please don't say we're doing nothing unless you find out first.
I've also sat on those meetings as well.
Okay, thank you.
And I know we're doing nothing.
Okay, then. Right, Councillor Wright for the right. Sorry, Councillor Simmons right for reply. Simpson second.
I'm now Councillor Simpson. I'm definitely going to have
You can't Simmons, and then you looked at me. So.
Have we got a budget for a gnome?
Come on, that's small.
I think, well, I mean, much of what I was going to say has obviously been said because we've gone around the room quite a bit. But I think just pick up on what Marion has just said in terms of our capital programme. Our capital programme is at a point in time, if the technology and that money is allocated, if the technology between now and then is updated, is improved, is better, set in stone in that says that what has to be purchased has to be the equivalent of what we've got now. We talked about that list of vehicles. We talked about ones we could look at that could be more sustainable. perhaps be hybrid. If given our topography in this borough, we need to make sure that we can actually deliver a service. But one of the things, and interesting budgets, exciting budgets are all very subjective. Being a finance person doesn't have to be very interesting to be very sexy to me, but I think it is good. And I think it's good because it builds. It's built on what we've done before. It continues to build. And yes, we've had to take some challenging decisions. And putting a budget together in the current climate we're in right now isn't the easiest thing, but it's made us look at what we offer, look at how we offer it, and look at actually what's better for our residents. And sometimes that isn't that we offer the service. Sometimes there is that the service is offered in a different way. And we've taken difficult decisions and we've made challenging choices that haven't always been popular. But actually, what we haven't done is gone through and said, well, we can just take that out of the pot. We can just take that out of reserves. We've given our borough a sustainable future because the reserves are there. This is just pillaging reserves and actually putting nothing back. And in terms of, dealing with a community that might be in poverty and how that might deliver different things for them, I don't see anything in that. It doesn't change that. It doesn't change their circumstances. Very little of this would actually change the circumstances for anybody for any sustainable period of time. So actually, I think you do them disservice by saying that, because it is a one-off, a mobile community crisis. Our budget doesn't try and be something it doesn't need to be, and it can't be. And it can't be a lot of in the longer term for our residents. You glibly say, oh, well, it's just £40 for a celebration. Actually, when we look back at the Platinum Jubilee, that lifted spirits, that made people feel, part of their community, brought their communities together, which is very important when times are hard and difficult. And actually, I think it's right that we do recognise that in that. Realistically, without that, we probably wouldn't have changed much in there at all, because it's a build on 4 years' worth of working on what we've got, working on delivering with what we've got, rather than, taking it out of the bank, leaving us in a difficult position, leaving our borough in a difficult position, and having to leave a note should the worst happen in May, that we have to leave a note that was left by Liam Byrne saying, the money's been spent, thanks, bye.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Okay, Councillor Wright. Can no one else speak? Councillor Wright, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't go and leave this without coming back on some of the comments that the few people that from the Labour group have spoken. I'll go in reverse order. Councillor Chambers, you mentioned climate change and our lack of ambition, etc. We might have more money to tackle climate change if we hadn't spent a fortune on tackling the hypocritical no oil campaigners that endangered life, damaged property at Kingsbury Oil Terminal, whilst at the same time driving round, bearing in mind they want to stop using oil, driving around in minibuses, picking up their fellow campaigners, or flying over from Europe using God knows how much oil. So we might have more money if we hadn't spent it on tackling those hypocrites. Councillor Gosling, you said you've supported us through, you haven't voted, you never voted against things like leisure centres.
Sorry, that's not true. That's not what I said. I didn't say I've never voted against you. I said at the times that we've asked for more scrutiny.
You said you support our ambition, you support, so I assume from the comments that you made that you will be supporting our budget and voting in favour of it. And then Councillor Phillips, you said it was, and I quote, it wasn't the government, the Labour government, it was the banks and the accountants. I disagree. Woody's an accountant. Here are the facts. Unfortunately, at that time, you are right. The subprime mortgage market was a particular problem. That was in America. It then came over to here to particularly the Bank Northern Rock. And unfortunately for this country, we had the Chuckle Brothers in government. We had Gordon Brown as the Prime Minister and Alistair Darling as the Chancellor. The Chuckle Brothers spent so much time deliberating, should we bail out Northern Rock, should we not bail out Northern Rock? They created panic investors and the city. They eventually came to the conclusion, oh yes, it was the wrong conclusion. We should bail out Northern Rock, commit billions of pounds to bailing them out. We then had a flurry of applications to the government to say from the other banks, the other financial institutions, oh, well, if you do it for them, you've got to do it for us because we're struggling a little bit now as well. Lots of things. Lloyds Bank were asked to take over HBOS and all the rest. No due diligence. The government just forced it on them. As I say, not banks and accountants. Chuckle Brothers creating instability after they plundered. I won't give way, Councillor Phillips. After they had plundered the reserves, after they sold off our gold reserves, there was no money left. So they then had to borrow money to make to bail out banks after they made the wrong decision. So that's your lesson in economics for this evening. I will now remind the Chamber that our budget is sustainable, full of growth, full of ambition, and I commend it to the Chamber.
It's an election in
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Okay, so this proposed amendment has been proposed and seconded. Now, and now we're going to do a recorded vote.
Thank you. So this is in respect of the Conservative amendment. If everybody's clear on what they're voting for, there be any further clarification?
Yes, certainly. I think the amendment. I think it's the amendment plus the budget.
Yes,
It's the whole, not
Yes,
just the amendment.
It's the amendment to the budget, yes. So it's-
No, is it the full budget?
Yes.
With including the amendment?
Yeah, so just to clarify what I said earlier, in terms of the budget has been circulated, that was minute number 55. The paper that you have in front of you this evening is an amendment to that. It amends it in respect of paragraph A and B, but it says at the bottom of that page, recommendations C through to H remain as set out. So it's for the entire budget, which now has A and B instead of the A and B that you had originally. So,
Okay.
full amendment.
All right, everybody?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
For.
Councillor Chambers.
Against.
Councillor Denise Clues.
For.
Councillor Tony Clues.
For.
Councillor Davey.
For.
Councillor Derby.
Against.
Councillor Farrow.
Against.
Councillor Gosling.
Against.
Councillor Hancocks. For. Councillor Hayfield. For. Councillor David Humphries.
For.
Councillor Marion Humphries.
For.
Councillor Jarvis.
For.
Councillor Jens.
For.
Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor MacDonald.
For.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Against.
Councillor Mawson.
Against.
Councillor Osborne.
Against.
Councillor Kerry Parker.
For.
Councillor Marley Parker.
For.
Councillor Parsons.
Against.
Councillor Hayden Phillips.
Against.
Councillor Owen Phillips.
Against.
Councillor Riley.
For.
Councillor Simpson.
For.
Councillor Sandra Smith.
For.
Councillor Simmons.
For.
Councillor Andy Wright. Councillor David Wright.
For.
Against.
Carried.
Okay. Obviously that's carried. Okay, so we're going to go back to the whole of the exec board page by page. When it went from 55 to 155, so yeah, so
Agree.
okay, 152, 153, 154, 155, and 156. Councillor Wright.
Yes. Yes. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, on 50, item number 57, Constitution Delegation Matters, the report said the establishing of a subcommittee to look at the UK FPS funding.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that subcommittee is 6 in total, 4 and 2, and the members from the Conservative group will be myself, Councillor Bell, Councillor Riley, and Councillor Denise Clues.
Myself and Mr. Councillor Morton.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Back to Councillor.
Okay, so back to you now.
I now move that the minutes of the executive board held on February the 13th of this year be adopted.
Seconded.
All those in favour? All those against? Okay, okay, carried. Right. Moving on to item 15. To receive the notice of motion, I've done that. Okay, item 16. To authorise the Chief Executive in accordance with Article 1105 of the Articles of the Constitution to sign and seal on behalf of the Council any orders, deeds and documents necessary to give effect to any resolution of the Council, including any passed during part of the meeting held in private. All those in favour? Okay. So now go to exclusion of the public and press. To consider in accordance with section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, where it is in the public interest that the public and the press be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves a likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by Schedule 12A of the Act. Second. All those in favour? Thank you.